All right, y'all. Thank you all for joining today. This is the 90-day action plan is something that I actually just went through with my coach for myself and then with everyone on our team. Obviously, we are coming up towards the end of the year, so you'll hear all of the you have 60 days or 75 days left in the year to make things happen. And for this year and what we're doing now is going to set us up for next year. So there's lots of, different things to be said and points to be made as far as, putting in the work now for us to, see the benefits through the end of this year and into next year. So getting that momentum going. So what I will do, or actually I have this, let me share my screen here. I shared this PDF in my Instagram bio. So you can actually download this PDF there. And it's basically a breakdown. We're going to go over a breakdown of this information, but this is something that you can print and, write on, or you can have, on your computer or whatever it may be. But just kind of the breakdown of what we're going to go over. Or if you just like taking notes, on a piece of paper or whatever, that's cool too. This is being recorded. I will toss it up in a link later today as well, so that you can rewatch it and whatnot as well. So let me share. All right. So again, 90-day action plan. So the thought process here is to plan out kind of the next 3 months of your business life. It being the middle of September, you can kind of plan out for September, to the mid-October to mid-November, and then through the end of the year. So if y'all have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat or unmute either, work as we go through this. But again, this is the kind of outline of the things that I'm going to go over today and talk about the different things on the 90-day sheet. So as far as this goes, the first thing that I want to kind of talk about is in the middle of the first page, and that's what's your why. So, obviously everyone, not obviously, for the most part, everyone that's in, real estate does want to make money. You're here because it is a source of income for you. So, as far as when you're like, okay, well, why? But I think the biggest thing is digging deeper into that. So if that means that you want to take, your kids to Disney this year, or if that means that you want to go on a specific vacation, or you're looking to move into a new home, or perhaps buy your first home, what would that money, really do for you? And why do you want to work hard over the next 90 days? So again, if that's like a Christmas trip, a Christmas gift, if that's something specific you're doing in 2022, if you're trying to buy a house, pay for, a vacation, pay for a wedding, pay for whatever it may be, what would that money do for you? So that is kind of on that first page. In the middle, plugging in what's your why. Funny enough, as I was loading up a slide deck to toss this in to have some sort of visual to go over these things, this was actually the quote that was in the slide when I pulled it up. So I was like, this is perfect. If you guys haven't read the book by Simon Sinek, he talks about, your why, and it start with why, and it's great, but this was the quote in there. So I thought that it was very fitting. So I just left it in. Okay. So looking at the PDF and the financials is kind of the first portion of the PDF. What you want to break down and how I go through this is I first start with, I actually come back to this, but we'll talk about it and then I'll come back to it. So you want to break down your transaction goals. So how many actual transactions you're going to have, your GCI goal, right? So how much money you want to or need to make, the sales volume, your total expenses. And when I talk about total expenses, I like to look at not only your expenses as far as business expenses, but also personal expenses. So, car payment, insurance, mortgage, if you have, money in, money out, what's that money out looking like? Obviously you can break that down into both your personal and business, and then your net, right? So if you made $10,000 in a month, but you had $12,000 worth of bills, you're going to need to make more money, but that net number would be negative, right? So you want to really consider, okay, if I'm trying to make $10,000 and I only have $5,000 worth of bills, then like, hey, you have $5,000 net, right? And then in addition to that, I think things that are important to keep in mind are your savings and your debt. So breaking down what debt you have, so whether that's cars, credit cards, mortgages, loans, things like that. I always recommend putting them down on paper from highest interest rate to lowest interest rate, right? So if you have a 3% interest rate on your house, but you have a 20% interest rate on a credit card, you should pay off your credit cards before you start trying to pay down the principal on your house. So just food for thought there. And then savings. I think that a lot of times we get lost in kind of, again, the money in, money out. So thinking, okay, even if it's $100 a month, how much do you want to save each month with the money that's coming in? So again, we'll kind of come back to this because I think it's easier to kind of start and kind of reverse engineer it as opposed to just saying, okay, I want to make $10,000 each month. So I want to make 30 grand over the next 90 days. It's, I think, easier to break it down by transactions and kind of come back to it. So, sorry, I just had a package delivered to my front door. The Nest cameras now are giving really specific instructions. They're like, your camera thinks that they saw a package delivered. Like, that is very creepy. Anyways, so as you move down the spreadsheet, or as you move down the PDF, again, this PDF is in my Instagram bio, and I will email it out to everyone, but the easiest initial thing was just to toss it in there so people could download it if they wanted to. This is the listing section. So when you think about listings, the first thing that I would do is take a look at previously throughout the year. How many listing appointments have you been on and how many listings have you taken? Chances are you don't get every single listing that you go onto a listing appointment with, right? So if you've been on 10 listing appointments and you've taken 5 listings, then your ratio is 50%, right? Pretty straightforward. If you've gone on, I was going to try a bigger number. If you've gone on 20 listing appointments and you've taken, 15 divided by 20 is 75%, right? So you want to kind of figure out what that percentage is. And generally, if you go on 2, do you get 1? If you go on 3, do you get 1? What does that look like for you, right? And then in an ideal world, all of our listings would sell. For most people on this call for 2021 and last year as well, like it's been a great seller's market. So most of your listings do sell, but let's, be honest, not all of them do sell, right? The seller may pull it off the market. It may not sell because it doesn't sell. Maybe the marketing was bad. Maybe it was overpriced. Maybe the condition of the home was poor, whatever it may be, but not all of the listings that you take actually sell. So that's the second line there. So listings taken to listings sold. If that's 80% or 90% or whatever that may be, you want to plug that in to this down here. And then having those numbers out on paper, basically what you want to figure out is, okay, how many listings do you, foresee selling or want to sell over the next 90 days? And you would put that at the top right. And then on the top left, how many listings taken? So, if you want to sell 10 listings, excuse me, but I wonder if I can mark this up. Do you ever have those moments where you have what you think could be a good idea? Can y'all see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Yeah. All right. So if you want to sell 10 listings, and you, generally, we're just going to go like super easy numbers. You get 50%, of the listings you go on. And we're just going to, again, for sake of easy math and my poor math skills, we're going to say you sell every single listing you take because you're just a rock star, even though you're only getting half the listings you go on. Then, well, actually that's, oh my God, sometimes my math is poor. So we're gonna, so if you, basically want 10 listings sold and you, normally get 50% of the listings that you go on and you sell 70% of the listings that you take, then you would need to take 10 See, this is where like I need to use common numbers, and I should do this math before I do some sort of presentation. You know how many listings you should take for that. Let me drop them in the comments below. But listing sold 10, 70. I don't know if anyone's doing math right now or if everyone's as poor at math as I am. Sam doesn't do math. She don't math. Math is a verb now. I think it would be 14. I could be wrong. I don't know. But we'll just say it's 14 just for, whatever. But basically you want to do that math, right? To figure out of the listing appointments that you have, of the listings that you're taking, how many you're going to sell. So if I'm taking 14 listings and I normally only get half of them, that means I need to go on 28 appointments over the next 30 days. Does that make sense to everyone? Right? Okay, cool. I'm seeing some head nodding despite my inability to do math. I can calculate certain percentages though. Anyways, so basically you want to break that down, right? Of how many appointments you want to go on, how many listings you'll be taking, and then how many of those listings will actually sell. And now that I look at it, I think my math is correct. Once you go from there, what you want to think about and look at are the amount of listings that you've taken this year. Where have they come from, right? So if you've taken 20 listings and 5 are from your sphere, 5 are expired listings, 5 are past clients, and 5 are, from circle dialing or something like that, will that still hold true for the end of this year? If you've stopped making any calls and you're not doing expireds and you're not, whatever, then like it's going to take some time to ramp that stuff up, right? If you haven't talked to your sphere in a while, that's probably an easier one that you could start calling today and you might start to see business from. But let's break down what those sources are. So, for sale by owners, expired, past clients, if you're running certain advertisements or campaigns online, ongoing things like that. So break that down and have those numbers broken down on the right-hand side. So if I were taking 14 listings, then I need to have 4 or more lead sources and breaking those 14 down. So my number of listings on the right-hand side should equal 14. I'm not going to try to write that because clearly my little math skills there are bad. And also my handwriting with the little pen is bad too. So I'm just going to clear those off and we're going to move on. Any questions on the listings, please feel free to drop them, in the chat. More than happy to answer them. That's basically what we want to do for listings, right? Is break those down, by how many appointments we need, how many listings we're taking, how many listings we're going to sell. So the same thing with buyers, right? How many buyer sales are we going to have for the next 90 days? And how we want to break this down is basically then how many appointments do we need to go on for sales? So, realistically, like we'll meet a buyer, right? We then would probably do some sort of consultation with them or, some sort of initial meeting with them. But not every single buyer we meet with is going to buy ever, right? But not all of them are going to buy within the next 90 days. So what we want to really think about is of the people that we're meeting with, who's going to buy between now and the end of the year, right? And what that percentage would look like. So if I want 5 buyer sales, but I know, generally speaking, most of the people I meet, a third of them are only looking to buy or half of them are only looking to buy in the next, 90 days, then I would put 50% on this line, right? So I'm going to use text this time so that you guys can actually read it. If then 50% of the people are buying, then that means that I need to have 10 appointments, right? So really think about that and really think about the leads that you have and the people that you talk to. Of those people, how many would be looking to move in the next 90 days or looking to close in the next 90 days? And then from that as well, we want to break down the sources. So if that's open houses, that's great. If that's, let's see, kind of open houses. If that's, online leads, maybe that you do Facebook leads, maybe you have a specific website that you get buyer leads from, different things like that. Break that down, sphere referrals and agent to agent referrals. And then break that down as well for the number of sales that you would receive. And I think it's also a good time to kind of look back to, the past effectively 8 or 9 months of the year, 8.5 months of the year and see, okay, well, where has my business come from thus far? And how can I, double down over the next 90 days to ensure that I'm still getting that same amount of business from those lead sources? Okay. All right. If anyone has any questions on buyers, please feel free to drop them down below. So basically, once you've kind of taken that both from the buyer and listing side, the other thing that's good to take a look at is, how much money you've made thus far, so far this year for both listings and buyers, and kind of what your average price points are. Sometimes a lot of people will have like the same, average price point across the board, but sometimes when you segment it out to both listings and buyers, you're going to see that perhaps you sell the listing side is a little bit higher than the buyers you work with, right? Because you're helping first time home buyers and then they come back to you to sell at a later date and, whatever that may be. Or perhaps, you're selling in a specific neighborhood, but a lot of the buyers you are working with are working in a more expensive neighborhood. So one may be higher or lower than the other. And that's where then basically taking, what average price points you've been seeing thus far, what general commissions you're seeing on both your listing and buyer side, you can come to the financials and say, okay, I have my listings goal and my buyer's goal for the next 90 days, and I can plug that up here into the transaction number, right? So I can plug in my buy and listings. Okay. And that will give me a number as far as how many transactions I want to hit. If I know that my average price point is $300,000 and my average commission, say, is 2.5%, then I can plug this in to add in my GCI and my sales volume goals. So just for simple numbers, if we were saying that we wanted to sell 10 homes and my sales volume, again, simple numbers, $300,000 times 10 would be 3 million, right? So I would plug that in. There's already a dollar sign. So I want to sell 3 million. And then, if my average commission, I think I said 2.75, would be, 82K over the next 90 days. Then I would again plug in my expenses and my net, and then figure out what savings I want to save over the next 90 days and what debt I want to pay off over the next 90 days. Okay. So I like, again, to reverse engineer that and start with my listings and buyers and figure out, okay, what have I done? Can I replicate that over the next 90 days? Or what will that look like if I go all in for the next 90 days? And then kind of come back to be like, okay, I have now a number of transactions I want to do. This is generally the price point I'm playing in, I'm working in, right? And this is how much money I can make when I do that, right? And putting it kind of in black and white or in blue and white in this case. So that's kind of the financials and the numbers aspect of things. Next up on the PDF are your commitments. So this is always a fun one. Everyone loves committing to things. So the first part of this is basically, what is your commitment to money making time or prospecting? When are you going to make calls? And when are you going to, touch base with people that you're working with? So that can be new business, right? Calling new leads, old lead follow-up, checking in with past clients, your sphere. If you're doing circle dialing, for sale by owners, expireds, anything like that, when are you committed to making those calls, right? Putting that in your calendar and committing to that on a daily basis. Okay. Working on skills. So what are skills that you need to work on over the next 90 days? So that could be, more personal communication skills, right? So that could be your listing presentation, that could be buyer consultations, that could be specific scripts or conversations that you're going to be having a lot, right? Perhaps that's something that you need to hone and work on. Perhaps it's just overcoming objections, right? Maybe it's things that are a little bit more technical, right? So that could fall into a little bit more of systems. So where could you be more organized, right? So I said earlier, listing presentations, buyer consultations, going over specific scripts or objections, things like that. Like perhaps it's that you need to have a better listing presentation. Perhaps it's that you need a better buyer consultation. Perhaps it's something that you need a better system for to ensure that you're doing something in a process a little more smooth than you're doing today, right? So where could you be more organized? Maybe it's just using your CRM. Wild concept, but maybe it's something like that. Okay. And then finally, accountability. So where are the things that you want to say, okay, I'm going to commit to doing this and I want someone to hold me accountable for that. So this is something that if you all, are in some sort of coaching program, it's something that you're going to need to go to your coach and say, hey, this is something that I want to do over the next 3 months. And I want to be held accountable to shooting a certain amount of videos per month. Perhaps it's posting on social media a certain amount of times. Perhaps it's a certain amount of calls that you're going to make each week or each day. Maybe it's the amount of times that you're going to sit down and do an hour of power and make calls. But where are areas in which you feel as if you could be held more accountable? Okay. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Next up, all right, so next up is on the PDF is basically the final page. And this is the review of the quarter by month. So at the end of each month, you're basically going to want to sit down and say, okay, this is the month of, say, October, November, December. Yeah. So you could say the month of October or the month of September 15 to October 15, right? I like doing things for like the whole month from like 1 to 30 or 1 to 31, but however that looks for you, and plugging in how many transactions you actually closed, what your sales volume was, right? Your GCI, your expenses, your debt, your savings, and your net. And then also acknowledging a win for the month. Okay. So what's something that you did, especially if you have, lofty goals or commitments, right? So perhaps it was sticking to your, money making time 4 or 5 days a week. Perhaps it was that you practiced your listing presentation every single day. Maybe it was that you created a new listing presentation that you won 5 new listings with, whatever it may be, some sort of win for the month. So that's really the breakdown and kind of what you would want to do on a monthly basis to see, hey, am I still on track? Am I, where I want to be? And yeah, that's kind of all I've got. And as far as accountability, if you guys are filling this out or going to fill it out later, if you would like some additional accountability, you are more than welcome to email me your packet. I'm happy to look it over. I'm happy to check in with you over the next 90 days. If you have something specific that you want to be held accountable be held accountable with, I'm just naming off prepositions now. But if you would like some additional accountability, please feel free to email me your PDF, and I would be more than happy to provide that to you, for you, with you, together. Clearly, English is not my forte. But anyways, so that's all I've got. If y'all have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or I'm more than happy to chat about them as well. But that's all I've got for today. And yeah, thank you guys for coming and hanging out.